If you have a pastoral staff team, then you probably know that there is a huge pastoral shortage across the country. And you probably want to keep the staff members you have so you don't have to go out and look for somebody else to come in because they might not be out there. What I want to do today is I want to show you a few things that you can do to increase the morale on your pastoral staff team to make sure that they just don't go off somewhere else. Because once they leave, you may or may not find somebody else to step in their place. And so I'm going to give you a few tips on how to keep them happy and serving well in your church. So let's get started. Welcome to the Pastor's Growing Church Community Podcast. Here, we're going to teach you the 4 levers that you need to pull for church growth. And today, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about your pastoral staff team. Now, I don't know, you may or may not have a big staff, a small staff. It may just be you and one other person. Um, but what I do know is that across the board, across the country, there is a huge pastoral shortage. And I know that too often I hear of pastors, lead pastors, who are letting pastoral staff members go for various reasons, some justified, some maybe not so justified, and they are struggling to replace those. They are struggling to get somebody else to come in, especially if you're looking for a good kids pastor or if you're looking for a good youth pastor. Those two are getting very, very sparse out there in the country, and there's very few people who are ready and willing and able to step into those positions to replace missing pastoral staff members. And so, what I want to do today is I want to give you a few tips on how to increase the morale of your staff, increase how they feel about you, how they feel about the organization, the church itself, how they feel about being a part of the team that they're on, increase their morale so that they don't look for somewhere else to go. So they're not leaving and heading off somewhere else, but they're staying where they are. They're investing in the community. They're building deep relationships. They're becoming deeply ingrained in the community that you're trying to serve as a church. And they can do great things and impact people who are walking through the doors every Sunday. And so that's what I'm doing. I want to give you these few tips to increase the morale, to keep your staff members, so you're not having to go look somewhere else for another staff member that may or may not be out there. Now, the first thing that you want to do in order to increase morale in your staff is you want to build an onboarding experience. Now, if you already have staff members, they're already in place and they're already good to go, then great. But if you don't, if you're looking to bring on a new staff member, you're looking to bring on a new pastor at your church, maybe you're in the interview process or you've already hired them and they're a few weeks or a couple months from coming, you need to think about, how do I onboard them onto the team in a way that makes them feel like this is the best decision that I have ever made coming to this church and being a part of the staff. Because a lot of times when new staff members come in, they come in excited, they come in ready to get started, ready to jump in, but the onboarding process is going to communicate a lot to them on what their experience at your church is going to look like. If it's a very disheveled process, if it's here's this thing and here's this thing and sign this paper and now you're good to go. If it's not very thorough and it doesn't make them feel special or make them feel like you're just as excited to have them on your staff as they are to be there, if that's not the case, then there's a good chance you're going to start right off the bat with this idea and mentality in their mind that, oh, maybe this isn't quite what I was looking for. One of the worst things that I've seen is pastors who come on staff at a new church and they're there for 4 weeks or 6 weeks and they're like, we should have never come. I don't want to be here. I don't like my job. I don't like this church. I don't like the lead pastor. I don't, whatever it is. And they're out. And so for you as a lead pastor, you invested all this time and energy interviewing and maybe bringing them in and having conversations and meeting different members of your church. And then you hire them and you get them there and you go through the process of welcoming them and getting all their paperwork done and getting them implemented and introducing them to your church family, your church community, only to then turn around a few weeks later for them to leave because they were dissatisfied or frustrated or things weren't quite what they thought when they came in. Well, an onboarding course or an onboarding process is going to help them in this experience to make sure that they have the right mindset, the right heart, that they have the right information. And so when they're coming on, they feel like they're an important part of what you're doing as a church and they're excited to be on the team. Now, a few things about having an onboarding experience is that again, you're wanting to make them feel welcome. So you want to go over the top in welcoming them. Simple things like, there are the things that we always do. They have to fill out the paperwork for being paid and getting their taxes, and all those things are done. We have to give them keys, and we have to explain various pieces of software to them, or various processes, or whatever. Those things they're going to get done because they can't function in their job without it. But there are other things that we can do to make them feel on a personal level like they're a part. For instance, having a get together or a party with them and the rest of the staff, or them and the area of ministry that they're involved in, the leaders in that area. Having a party, hosting a party, you as the lead pastor hosting that party, getting to know people in the church, and you're using the change in your pocket to introduce them, so they don't have to start at zero with these people and say, well, here's the new youth pastor, get to know him, and then you walk away, and then they're left to try and figure it out. No, you're going around, you're introducing them. Thanks for being here with us. Want to introduce you to Pastor so and so. He's coming from us from here, and I'm so excited to have him. And here are some of the things that he's done in the past, and this is what I'd like to see him do while he's here. And I'm thrilled to have him be a part. By you doing that, it sets that person up, that new staff member, it sets them up like, wow, I'm in this great position where pastors really championing me, pastors, stepping at key people in the church, helping me build relationships and feel at home. When you do those things, then you make them feel special. You go over the top on welcoming. Another thing that I think is a great help for a lot of new pastors to come on staff is if they're moving from another location, so they're moving from out of state in particular, and they're coming into your city and they're coming into your community, and they don't know anything. They don't know who to talk to. They need a dentist, and they need a doctor's office, and they need places to go hang out and buy groceries, and they need a movie theater to go to, and they need just different things like that. Well, a lot of times, I know for myself, a lot of times I step on staff and I move to a new city, and I'm not given a lot of information. I remember when I was um, right out of Bible college, and I went to be on staff at a church in Washington D.C. I'm a Midwest boy. I grew up in Iowa. I moved to D.C. and it was a culture shock for me. And I wasn't given a lot of direction. I wasn't given a lot of, here's where you do this, and here's where you can go to this, and here's some cool things you need to check out, and here's some like rules. Like for me, I had a car. And in DC, that's tricky because you have to move your car all the time, and you can't just leave it on the spot and get tickets. And a lot of that stuff wasn't explained to me. And so I was very not only was I going through culture shock, but I became very disenfranchised with the whole experience because I just didn't know anything about the city and I couldn't figure it out fast enough. And it became very frustrating for me. And so providing, a list of things to do and a list of places to go and a list of services that they're going to need, even simple things like if they're moving into a home, here are all the utility services you need to get set up or whatever. Just how do you make that transition into your city simple, easy, and also make them feel special and that you value them as a new member of the staff? So that's the first thing. Build an onboarding experience that is just over the top, making them feel welcome and valuable. The second thing is do an annual retreat. This is something I picked up from a pastor that I served under years ago. Every year he would take his staff and they would go get a cabin in the woods for 2 or 3 days, and they would go off and they would just be together, hang out together. I loved it coming on staff. I remember my first staff retreat. It was wonderful because I was still getting to know some of the staff members. And so we went off into this cabin and we just hung out, and we played games and we talked, and we watched some basketball games that were on, and we just were together. There wasn't a lot of distractions. We weren't on our phones, weren't on our computers, we weren't doing work. We were just there hanging out and being a part. And it was great because I was able to have really long, deep conversations with other staff members, ask them questions about themselves and their families and about the location that we were in. It was very helpful. And I have loved that idea ever since. And I think that doing that annual retreat, if you implement that with your staff, it gives them the ability to really connect with each other. And every team, every single team, the thing that fights off disunity within a team is having time together to get to know each other, to understand each other, even to work out issues and frustrations. And not that that's necessarily what you want to do on a retreat, but when those relationships are deepened on that annual retreat, Well, then the other things in the office and ministry times and during the week, that all is smoothed out a little bit more because your staff has had time to connect with each other and learn from each other and be closer to one another. The one thing I would say is don't put a lot of business into that retreat. I've been on some pastoral staff retreats where we go and we have moments and times we're hanging out and playing basketball and different things like that. But we're also in these long sessions, these vision casting sessions, and the here's the new structure that we're introducing, or here's the new ministry that we're launching, and we're going through the nuts and bolts, and you have this conference feel of like part of its work and part of its play, and those are great, and I think those are valuable tools to use at different times. But I think that when you are looking at a staff retreat that's geared towards building morale and getting your team closer, I think it's more important that you put away with the business and just spend 2 or 3 days hanging out and being together. Build those relationships and go deeper with one another. When you do that, then your team morale goes up and everybody just feels better on what they're doing and more connected with each other. And so make it very fun, not a lot of business, and find ways to make it memorable. One of the things that this pastor did is he would get a gift for every. So the way we did it is we did staff and spouses. And so no kids came. It was just staff and spouses. We hung out, got a cabin, and we just were together. Um, and every couple would get a gift. The one I remember was it was like a basket, and inside the basket were all these personal gifts. So like my favorite candy was in there, and I think my favorite uh, movie was in there, and he had gotten a game that he thought I would like, and he got something I can't remember what, but he got something for my wife that was something that she really liked, and so it was like 2 or 3 things, and none of it was very expensive. It was all, I think the whole basket probably cost less than $50. But it was thoughtful. He had put in the time to think it through and really try to put us first. And that made me feel special. It made me feel like, okay, like Pastor gets me. He values me. He's paying attention and he's learning about me. And I'm not just a cog in the ministry machine that he's running at our church. And so that was just very memorable. It was a great addition to the retreat itself. And so I would encourage you find ways to make it memorable through the course of the retreat. The third thing is to have a monthly one-on-one with each individual staff member. And I know for you as a lead pastor, this may seem like a lot. This may seem like if you have a staff of five, well, every month you're meeting with, each of them one on one. I would keep it to at least 30 minutes, no more than an hour. Um, but this is a time where you sit down with each and every one of your staff members and you ask lots of questions, you listen to their responses, and you take notes. Too many times when we are with our staff, especially for those of us who are very extroverted and who tend to enjoy talking a lot, what'll happen is, and I've been in this situation where I'll have a one-on-one with my lead pastor. He'll ask me a question, I will respond, give him an answer, and then he will then talk for the remainder of the time. And even though a lot of what he's saying is great, that's not the point of this moment. As a lead pastor, you are always casting vision. You are always connecting. You are always sharing your thoughts and ideas, and you're doing that on a regular basis. If you're like most lead pastors, because you're leading, you are the one who is taking everything forward. You're listening to God. You're communicating the vision that He's putting on your heart, and you're sharing it with everybody on a regular basis. And if you're like most pastors, lead pastors that I know, you're also processing your sermons all the time. And so you're telling your stories, kind of warming them up and getting ready for your sermon this week or next week. And, you're kind of processing through ideas and thoughts and whatever. And so you're using your staff as a sounding board, which is fine. But when you walk into this one-on-one, it's a time for you to listen and to share value with your staff members by listening to their responses. And I'll be honest with you, when I've done this with my team, when I've sat down one on one with my team members and I've asked questions and listened, they feel heard. Now, I don't do everything they say, or I don't, necessarily agree with everything they share with me, but I just want them to be heard. I want them to feel like I care about what they're saying. I care about their thoughts and their ideas. And I've had great ideas come out of those meetings because they don't have a space all the time to share their thoughts and ideas and their innovations and kind of what they're processing through, or even their frustrations and struggles and their hurts maybe along the way. Like those are there's not always space in the week for those things to be shared. And so if I have a one-on-one each month with my team members, then I have the opportunity to hear those ideas, hear those thoughts, hear those hurts and those pains, hear those innovations that they've been processing through and dreaming about for the last couple of weeks. I have an opportunity to hear those. And then when I turn around and I write those down, when you write them down, you are communicating what you are saying to me is important to me. And it's so important that I'm going to write it down. Now, you may or may not come back to those notes. You may or may not implement everything they do. You may or may not have an answer for every issue or question or frustration that they have. You may not. But the point of the meeting is for them to be valued and heard by you as the lead pastor. And if you do that, you listen, you ask questions, you listen, and you write notes. If you do that, I guarantee you, your staff member is going to feel like, wow, pastor really cares. He cares about what I think. He cares about my ideas, cares about my frustrations and my concerns. And I really think this is the place that I can spend for a long time. I can minister here for a long time, be on the staff for a long time because I know the pastor understands me and he gets me. And that's huge. That's huge for you as a lead pastor to have a staff that feels like they are connected to you, that you hear them, that you value them, and that they want to be a part of what you're doing. One-on-one meetings once a month, 30 to 60 minutes long, ask questions, listen, take notes. It's a game changer for you and your staff and the morale of them staying with you and being a part of what you're doing. And then the final thing is take care of their families. Most pastors who leave the ministry, and not for moral reasons, but who just choose, I'm done with ministry, I'm leaving. Most of the time, it's because they are protecting their family. They feel like somewhere along the way in their ministry, as a part of your team, your staff, somewhere along the way, their family has been lost. Now, some of that is just the nature of ministry. But most of the time, the reasons that are given is because I don't have enough time with my family. I'm not able to be there for them. I'm not able to connect with them. I'm missing my kids growing up. And I'm not saying that your job as the lead pastor is to fix that problem. But I am saying that when you take care of the families of your staff members, it communicates value to your team, but not just because they are cogs in the ministry machine that you're running. You value them as people and you recognize that they are a part of a family that needs them just as much as you need them and the church needs them. And so do things that invest into their families. I've had some pastors who only saw me and never saw my wife, only saw me and never saw my kids. And they loved me and we had a great relationship, but there was always this disconnect between them and my family. And my family knew it. They felt it. My wife, for sure, felt it. She felt ignored. She felt kind of second class or second rate because she felt like I was the one that was producing and I was the one that was a part of the equation and she was just an appendage that he had to tolerate. And that was just not a good message for her or my family. And so when you spend time really investing into the family members of your pastoral staff team, it's going to communicate that you don't just value them as a pastor or as a cog in the machine or as a member of your ministry team, but you value them as an individual and you recognize that they're a part of the family. And so there are little things that you can do. One of the things that I love is really going over the top on the compensation packages. And what I mean that is like the perks, not the salaries, because that's challenging. And, as churches, we don't have abundant salaries to hand out. But what other things can you do as a part of the perk of being a part of the staff team that you can give? One of the things that I've loved about the last couple of churches that I've been a part of is that they pay for my kids to go to camp. That's a huge expense for me. And I have three boys, and so as they get older, more of them are going to camp, and so that's a huge benefit for the church to cover my kids going to camp. Other little things of like giving them a couple floating holidays. Some churches I know have no vacation time at all. There is no such thing as taking a vacation or having a sick day. They just get their work done, and when they're off, they're off, and when they're there, they're there. And there's obviously some stipulations and some boundaries around that, so it's not taken advantage of. But honestly, if you're trusting your staff members and you're investing in them and loving on them and really putting value on them, they're not going to take advantage of a no vacation policy. They're not going to take advantage of that because they're going to be just as bought in to the church as you are, and they're going to want to give and they're going to want to invest. And so, finding ways, and those are just examples, but what can you do to go over the top on perks for your uh, pastoral staff members? One thing that one pastor did, he took us to lunch every Tuesday after staff meeting. We would go to lunch, and it wasn't lunch on the church, so it wasn't him using his church credit card to pay for us to go to lunch. It was him personally taking us to lunch, and he would use his own money to pay for us. Maybe that's not something you can do, but could you take everybody to coffee one day? Or, what things can you do to just give them a little extra, to love on them, to invest in them, to really just say, hey, I love you and I love your family and I want to get to know you and I want to value you. Do you know your staff members' kids' names? Do you know what grades they're in? Do you know what sports activities they're involved in? Do you know what's going on in their own personal life? Do you have those conversations? If your staff members feel like you know them and invest in them beyond what they can do for you in the church, the morale within them is going to go up. They're going to feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves. And they're going to feel like they are in a place that they want to stay. Because again, at the end of the day, if you lose a staff member, it's going to be hard to replace them. And I've seen lots of lead pastors have this idea that, oh, it's so easy to just, go find another kids pastor or find another youth pastor. It isn't. Maybe you can go find somebody to step in the role, but are they going to be the quality that you want? Are they going to be trained and developed? Are they going to be ready to go through the rigors of ministry, or are they going to burn out in a couple of years and you're going to be right back in the same spot? If you have staff members, take care of them. Use them to grow the church, use them to invest in the community, use them to make an impact for the kingdom, but value them at a high level and show that value to them every day that you can. Because when people are invested into you as a lead pastor and invested in the church and they feel valued, they're not looking for somewhere else to go. They want to be there and they're going to do what they can to stay there. And so those are 4 ways you can boost morale on your pastoral staff team to keep your staff members at your church doing well, growing healthy, and making an impact for the kingdom. Hopefully, those will make an impact for you. I would say pick one and start implementing it today. Figure out how you're going to implement it in the next week or the next 2 weeks. Because I guarantee you, when you start implementing things like this, your morale of your staff is going to go up greatly. And you won't risk losing them because they're just done. They're just burned out. They're just worn out. Or they want to go somewhere else that's where the grass is greener. Do these things, boost morale of your team. See what God can do with your team when they're united together with one another, when they feel valued and invested in, and when they're ready to do whatever it is that needs to be done to make an impact in your community and in your church. Alrighty? Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next episode.